Don't expect the Chicago Bears to make any big trades or free agent signings during the bye week, but there are some more subtle changes they can make on the roster to try and improve things for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. On the show today, I want to look at some of the biggest questions the Chicago Bears are working through during the bye week and why, while those might persist, we're not going to see major changes as a result. We're not going to see a big, blockbuster trade or free agent signing. They seem very content to leave things put and keep working through them internally and seeing how the roster develops over time. But I do think there are some smaller, more subtle changes that they should at least consider, if not, full on make during the bye week to try and come out an even better football team on the other side. Because I think as we go in and through this bye week now, I think one of the biggest questions that still lingers for me is will this offensive line and defensive line, really both trenches, remain a problem all season? Can they find ways to manufacture better run blocking and pass protection on one side and better pass rushing and run defense on the other side? Because I don't think you're going to see some savior appear on either line that comes in and is like, oh, this is the guy who's going to fix the O-line. I don't think starting Theo Bennett at left tackle is going to fix the entire O-line. And, I don't know that Grady Jarrett getting healthy again or Austin Booker coming off of injured reserve is going to fix the defensive line. It feels like they're kind of rolling with what they've got, and it is what it is, and it may be a little bit of a weakness pretty much the rest of the season, and maybe the question is how much of a weakness, or are there enough things the coaching staff can do to take the same players that haven't been playing super well and get them to start playing better, whether that's a different rhythm of play calling on offense, different run identities, more help in pass protection, whatever it might be. And certainly on defense, different defensive line rotations, different stunts, different blitzes, different fronts. There's a lot of different ways and knobs you can turn and dial and adjust to try and find whatever the best combination is going to be for your team. I'm just not necessarily convinced that there's going to be a perfect one that fixes everything, but maybe they can make it a little bit less of a problem as the season goes on. Because one of the other big picture question marks here that I think I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around is are the Bears actually making progress, or was it just wins over a bad Raiders team and a bad Cowboys team? And we saw the Raiders really look horrendous against the Colts on Sunday. And I know the Cowboys ended up beating the Jets, but it's a bad New York Jets team. And we haven't seen the Cowboys look particularly good this season. And so it's one of those things that you're not going to answer at the bye week. And I think as we talked about a little bit last week on the podcast, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle where it's yes, the Bears have made real progress. Yes, those opponents were bad, but that doesn't mean they don't mean anything to have beat them. But still, we still need to figure that out. And I'm left putting Caleb Williams in a little bit of a similar category, just in the sense of he's playing a lot better the last couple of weeks. But I'm really struggling with what his ceiling might be for this season. How much better can he still get this year? I mean, I think we all know longer term, of course, there's always, room for more improvement. I think we have visions of what that can look like. But in terms of like year one within Ben Johnson's offense, knowing the limitations that are just going to exist with the offensive line right now, with the defense on the other side of the ball being vulnerable, and the current lack of running game, right? There are certain barriers around Caleb Williams on this team that are going to limit him somewhere. And yet it feels to me like he's been picking things up really quickly, but then like how much better can he still get without a running game and with some offensive line consistency? I look around and you see, Drake May played really, really well on Sunday Night Football for the Patriots. He's looked really good this season. We've obviously seen Jaden Daniels be very good last year and maybe a little less good this year, but still a good young quarterback. A lot of good young quarterbacks ascending right now, and Caleb is ascending with them. But I'm curious to see in this like QB arms race from that draft class, like how much higher can Caleb go, and how this season specifically, and how much might he be held back by some of the limitations? Like, it's not as though it's so dire that he just can't be any good in an offense like this. No, but I do think it makes a big difference when you can give a quarterback a running game, better blocking, and a good defense. And it's not to say that, Jaden Daniels and Drake may have that all the time, but certainly Jaden Daniels has benefited from a lot of that in Washington, and they're starting to get closer to that with the New England Patriots. Certainly, they still don't have like a super stellar running game, but I think that's also why it's kind of the bar where it's like, okay, you're a highly drafted quarterback. You need to be able to not just be successful in imperfect scenarios and situations, but dare I say, thrive in even imperfect scenarios. Like if you want to elevate up to that level of quarterback, that's one of the thresholds that you have to be able to clear. And so I want to see what that looks like for Caleb Williams. Like how much can he make out of all of this? I was going to say make on his own, but like we've seen that he's a great quarterback doing things on his own, but a whole big part of the whole Ben Johnson thing is to not have to have Caleb Williams do it all. And that when he's had to do it all, he can, but sometimes he does too much of trying to do it all, and being able to have that balance of leaning on the running game and receivers sometimes and then breaking the rules sometimes is kind of the ideal mixture for this Bears offense. And they haven't been able to lean on it as much, certainly more this year than they did last year, but like how his development ties in with some of these other weaknesses and question marks around the roster, to me is kind of like the big picture thing. Because at the end of the day, this season, year one under Ben Johnson, is not all about, hey, let's go all in on winning the Super Bowl right now, right? This is all about building that foundation to then really go all in the next couple of years. So like Caleb Williams' individual development is the single most important thing this season. I still think it's more important than wins this season specifically. Wins are very important still, don't get me wrong, but like it's more important that Caleb Williams has a good year and takes those next steps as a quarterback than it is whether the Bears win 9 games or 7. Like that number isn't as important as what Caleb does, but how his development fits into the context of other things going on around the team is, to me, like the most critical thing you got to look at the bye week. Part of this conversation, though, is that because maybe wins, I mean, again, wins are always important. Teams always going to try and win every game, of course, but because this is not the all-in win as many games as you can season, that's why I don't think we're going to see the Bears make a big move. As much as the fan base looks at the weaknesses on this roster, says, ooh, how can they get better in X, Y, or Z way? I think we're going to see them continue to stand pat. And I want to go through why and what that's going to look like at a couple different positions over the course of the rest of the season. Next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that just make a neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become like an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. And when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And Square is always a big part of that. You know, I think about some of the businesses in my community that rely on Square, a place like Collectivo Coffee, a coffee shop that, you know, employs local people, brings, people together in a warm, friendly, safe space where people can enjoy their beverage and be themselves and kind of step away from the rest of the world. Like, it's an important part of the neighborhoods that Colectivo's in, and they are a big-time user of Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. Now, this week we didn't have a game to move forward, but when I think about this Bears team moving forward at the bye week, like, the thing that's moving the team forward is the change on the offensive line. This bye week is all about getting Theo Benedict ready to go at left tackle, and if Darnell Wright continues to miss time with the injury he suffered, and Ozzie Trapillo has to start at right tackle again. It's really about moving this offensive line forward with potentially 2 new starters, both making their first career NFL starts if they're both starters. But that's what is going to move this team forward. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So as much as Bears fans would love to see a big move, a splash, something to boost this team and put them over the top, because there are very clear weaknesses on this roster that you'd love to see addressed, I don't think anybody should be getting their hopes up. I mean, I know we still got a little time before the trade deadline, but I think bye week is always the time everyone looks like, ooh, okay, who could you trade for or whatever? Can they still pull off a Trey Hendrickson splash trade if the Bengals are ready to start, cutting bait a little bit there and move on from that kind of thing? Or I've certainly seen a long list of running backs the Chicago Bears should go trade for. It was Breece Hall with the Jets before Braylon Allen got hurt, and you look at Kenneth Walker from the Seahawks, and Ramondre Stevenson with the Patriots, with Trayvon Henderson really coming in big. And I mean, there's a bunch of guys across the league that Bears fans are like, ooh, can we get him? Can we get him? Can we get him? And I'm here to tell you, it's not gonna happen. Mostly, almost across the board, anywhere you'd look for the Bears to make a change like this, why would they do it now when they haven't done it already? I think about at running back with DeAndre Swift. Bears fans all offseason have been waiting for, begging, looking for, speculating for any type of running back move. But time and time and time again, when Ben Johnson is given the opportunity, he's it doesn't mince words when he firmly endorses DeAndre Swift. He said, not this exact phrase, but he's like, DeAndre Swift is not the problem in the running game. He said that after the Raiders game. He is very clearly saying, hey, we do not blame the running back here. We have faith in these running backs that we have. And they've had months and months and months to upgrade the position. And it's been the same guys the whole time. And they have not opted to. And so I'm not convinced that winning back-to-back games leading into the bye week is going to be the thing that pushes them over the top and says, oh, you know what? We really do got to get a better running back in here. They keep telling you over and over again they're not going to change the running back position, and both with their words and their actions. And I expect that to absolutely continue for all the way through the trade deadline and beyond. Again, this is all I'm talking bigger moves. Of course, you could add a third string running back, a veteran minimum free agent, sure, at any position. But I'm talking getting a new starter via trade or even in free agency. They're just not in a position to make that big splash that way. Same thing on the offensive line. I don't think I see as many Bears fans, clamoring for them to go make a big trade for a left tackle. But we see Cam Robinson gets traded between the Texans and whoever traded for him. Is it the Browns? I don't even remember, for a late round pick. So it's could the Bears go get a left tackle? But it's they have had this left tackle battle going. I mean, since the moment they drafted Ozzie Trapillo and said he was going to play left tackle, all off season, and they've had plenty of time to add a veteran outside left tackle into the mix if they felt like they needed to, and they haven't felt like they needed to. They were rolling with Braxton Jones. They had Trapillo in there. They pulled him out, and Theo Benedict goes in there. Now he's winning, and he's going to be the starting left tackle. The Theo Benedict move is the offensive line move that they're making. Like that is the move. There is no other move. This is the plan right now. You're just not going to see them all of a sudden after 4 weeks, and well, now 5 weeks heading into week 6, grab some outside left tackle and plug him into the offensive line. Like that's just not going to happen. I think the same thing is true for the defensive line, where pass rush has been a concern the whole time. And, before training camp, they brought in Tano Passanio as like sort of the veteran who's worked with Dennis Allen before. And like, that was it. That was their move. And they have had ample opportunity to, get a guy off of waiver claims. Jadeveon Clowney was out there for the first few weeks of the season. Zadarius Smith was available for a while. I think Preston Smith was available. There have been pass rushers. I'm not saying great options, but there have consistently been options for them that they have declined to use. And again, I'm not convinced that, 4 games we're going to wave the white flag and say, we should have done this a long time ago. Like this doesn't feel like Ryan Poles' approach. I think it's a feeling of like, get Grady Jarrett healthy, get Austin Booker healthy, and also hope along the way, like Sweat bounces back a little bit more and Odangbo can take a step forward and Dexter's making progress. Like they seem very inclined to just develop in-house and be patient. They're not trying to mortgage the future of draft picks to go trade for a player to make the pass rush much better right now, which it could use. But again, this is not necessarily the season to go all in right now at the trade deadline. And then I'll throw the cornerback position in this same conversation where it's like, we watch Nashawn Wright struggle and we watch Nick McLeod not be great in the slot either. And we think, boy, they could use a cornerback, don't you think? And they haven't. They don't go out and get a veteran. They bring in players for workout. They did like tryouts before early in the bye week, like last week before this past weekend, and they worked out. It was like 2 guards, a couple of linebackers, and like a defensive tackle. Like they're not even exploring cornerbacks that are out there right now. So I think short of somebody like Asante Samuel Jr. or one of these injured guys that just isn't healthy enough to sign yet, but maybe would be healthy later. Like I just don't see them making a big change at cornerback because the injuries they've been dealing with at cornerback have been going on for a long time. Like it'd be one thing if, Kyler Gordon just got hurt or Jalen Johnson just got hurt. You can say, okay, well maybe that's the impetus to go make a move at corner. But we know Jalen was hurt all the training camp and preseason and then barely played. He's been hurt the whole time. And then Kyler Gordon got hurt before the start of the season. It's been now 5 weeks he's been hurt. They've had 5 weeks to say, hey, we need to go out and grab another cornerback. But they've been consistently just, not with their words, but with their actions saying, no, we're good with Wright. We're good with Stevenson's been playing well. They got Jalen Jones off of waivers at the end of training camp. Former Bear brought back from the Cardinals. And like that seems like that's their cornerback move. And they just said, we're going to just roll with the guys that we have and keep our coaching staff developing them. So I don't have any evidence to say that behavior is all of a sudden going to change when you have 1-2 games and you are getting healthier and maybe you are playing a little bit better. I think we're going to see very little rocking of the boat all the way through the trade deadline, at least when it comes to like big roster changes. I do think there are smaller changes, and I'm not even talking like outside players, but smaller like internal changes, whether it's play calling or depth chart and player usage type of stuff that I think the Bears can and should look into at the bye week. I'm not here to say like, you do these 5 things and you're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I just think we've seen through the first 4 weeks, maybe some things that they should tweak and change a little bit that I'd like to see them at least dabble in a little bit more to see how well it might work. So we'll take a look at the changes that feel a little bit more realistic than like a big trade or big free agent signing next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, not only do you get the winnings from your $5 bet, but you're going to get an extra $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Any sport, any prop bet, any game, you got it with those after that first $5 bet. So if you want to bet on Bears Commanders coming up after the bye week, the Bears are 4.5-point road underdogs right now on FanDuel. The money line, if you want to pick the Bears straight up, would be plus 190. And I've seen the over-under move a little bit, but it's set at 50.5 points. So expecting a higher scoring one, but one that they think the Commanders win by more than a field goal. So if you like those odds, go place your $5 bet, get your $300 in bonus bets, and keep on bringing the fun. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So if not big, splashy transaction move, what can the Bears do to, tweak things and spruce things up and just try and stretch your dollar a little bit farther, if you will, stretch your roster a little bit farther after the bye week? Little things they can do. It's more than just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic because the ship's not sinking, but those kind of things. Like, can you get 5% better by making some small tweaks to some of the things you've been doing? I mean, that's what the self-scouting process is going to be all about this week. And I think there's a few things that jump out to me that, like, again, I'm not saying this is going to solve a big problem, but hey, maybe you could benefit from doing this a little bit more, doing that a little less. Like, I think this lack of running game, as much as Ben Johnson continues to endorse DeAndre Swift and insist that he is not the problem, I don't think he's the problem, but I think he's not the solution either. And so if he's not being productive, why not give your other running backs more opportunity? I'm not saying bench DeAndre Swift and give all the carries to Monangai, but I think Monangai could get some more carries. Like, I would give, fewer carries to Swift because I think Kyle Monangai has shown that he can be a running back who might not ever be the big breakaway home run there, but he's going to bounce off contact and he'll get you some hard-earned, heavy extra yards that when your offensive line's not blocking well, he can make up for that in ways that DeAndre Swift is a little less good at that specific aspect. He's a speed finesse guy, and he can hit the home run, and you want to build him up and get those home runs. But the Bears could just use a couple base hits right now in the running game. And so if Monangai, if DeAndre Swift is your slugger who hits 50 home runs in a year but bats 150, and Kyle Monangai bats 300 but doesn't really get it over the fence, like, this is a team right now that just needs to get runners on base in terms of the running game. This baseball metaphor is falling apart, but you get what I mean. Like, I'd give, if you get Kyle Monangai 10 carries a game instead of the 4 or 5 he seems to be getting, and maybe DeAndre Swift then is more like, 10 or 15 himself. Like, it's a closer to a 50-50 split of carries, and Swift still be, passing down back, like, still has more snaps, but I just think getting Monangai more carries, and heck, Roschon Johnson has yet to carry the ball this season. And I don't think Roschon Johnson is going to come into Chicago and solve the running game issue. I don't think Roschon Johnson is all that great. But if everything else you're trying in the running game isn't working, why not throw him out there, give him a couple of carries, and just see what happens? Like, it feels to me like, I don't want to say worst case scenario, because worst case scenario, I guess, is you fumble it or whatever, but like, worst case scenario, he gets 2 yards just like DeAndre Swift is. What's the worst that could happen, I guess, is the turnover. But, like, short of that, if he's also not a very good running back, then you're getting the same yards you've been getting from Swift anyway. So, but maybe there's a chance he could get you a little bit more in his own way. I mean, I just think it's worth throwing it out there and just giving it a try. Again, I'm not claiming it's going to solve the running game, but if what you've been doing isn't working and you got other things you could try, let's just try those things to make sure those wouldn't work. Just to see it and kind of prove oh, yep, that's why let's not try that anymore, but at least you got it out there to make sure that it's not going to work. I also think along a similar vein here, like, as the season goes on out of the bye week, I would like to see less Cole Kmet and more Colston Loveland, given how abysmal Cole Kmet was against the Raiders. I know some people were speculating that maybe he was, he took a hit to the head in the game and was maybe a little bit off, but he was not on an injury report even right after the game and practicing during the bye week. So it's not a confirmed injury for anywhere, so I'm not willing to accept that until we get some sort of evidence or confirmation of it. But clearly Cole Kmet has been struggling a little bit lately, and Colston Loveland is the future anyway. So I'd like to see more Loveland. That's not bench Kmet. That's not trading Kmet. It's just saying, hey, let's see what the young guy can do. And you know what? If you start giving Loveland more snaps and he's not ready or he's not doing it, you can just play Cole Kmet more. Same with DeAndre Swift, right? You start giving Monangai those carries and he's not getting anything either. All right, next game, just give him back to Swift. You can go back to doing what you were doing. But could you be better by trying this alternative? I think it's worth a shot there. Version of this on defense. I think I'd like to see less Noah Sewell and more Ruben Hippolyte. And obviously this is a little bit moot if TJ Edwards is good to go and you're back to Edwards and Edmonds. They're going to play the vast majority of the snaps, and Sewell's going to be a special teamer and a backup again. But his lack of speed and lack of tackling ability tells me like I want to try Ruben Hippolyte a little bit more. Like Sewell's been very good at being instinctual in the running game and hitting the right gaps. But that feels like it's been about it. Like he'll hit the right gaps and then leads the NFL in missed tackles. And then in coverage, he's getting torched a little bit too often. He's running from behind. He just doesn't have the speed. And it just hasn't been what the Bears need at the linebacker position. I'm not convinced that Ruben Hippolyte is going to come in and be some mega Pro Bowler. Like he's going to make mistakes too. He's going to miss tackles too. He might miss a run gap here or there. But like I would rather shoot for Hippolyte's upside and ceiling and say, hey, he's going to make some mistakes, but he's developing through those mistakes. And I can live with some of that. Whereas like, I don't think Noah Sewell is going to become anything different at this point. I think we kind of know what he is, and that's not a bad NFL player, but Hippolyte can be more, and playing time will help him develop that. Same kind of thing with Colston Loveland. Like, I'm willing to live with some mistakes and some rookie errors that may even hurt your team sometimes, but it's part of like getting that player better, and I think your offense and defense can be better in this way as well. I also think defensively, after the bye week, if Kyler Gordon is indeed healthy and good to go, I'd like to see Kyler Gordon play more outside cornerback and not just be exclusively in the slot. Now, I'm weary of this because I don't want to like completely remove him from the slot. I do want to still use him in the slot also. And so I think the compromise I kind of take here is like, if there's a game where you're going up against a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, like these kinds of great receivers, I'd like Kyler Gordon on the outside against them, like essentially following them around the field. I don't want there to be ever a situation where the Vikings or the Bengals or whatever team's receiver gets matched up one-on-one with Nahshon Wright, like whenever avoidable. I'd like to, have Kyler Gordon be able to avoid that. But then if you play a team, like the Raiders that have receiver talent, but don't have like that number one guy. I mean, Trey Tucker's had a good season, but he's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. Like, then put Kyler Gordon in the slot. He's great there to be closer to the ball, closer to the line of scrimmage, can blitz better from there, is more involved in the running game there. Like, I do think big picture, the best, like in a vacuum, the best utilization of his skill set is probably as a slot cornerback because of the proximity and because of what he does well. But what might be best for the Chicago Bears is him being on the outside. Like, even if he might be better in the slot, the defense might be better with him outside overall, even if it's slightly less ideal for him individually because of the upgrade he presents over Nahshon Wright. I know it's kind of a pick your poison because it's like, do you want Nick McLeod in the slot with Gordon on the outside, or do you want Gordon in the slot and Nahshon Wright on the outside? But I think we've seen, generally speaking, Nick McLeod be less vulnerable. And I think that's largely because from the slot, there are more ways you can help that player. There's less true one-on-ones in the slot. That even if you're in man coverage, usually you're going to have at least one safety in the middle of the field and maybe a linebacker in the middle of the field that can help you on some of those inside plays. Whereas when you're on the outside one-on-one, like, it's kind of just you two. And so I would rather have Kyler Gordon in those harder to mask situations. Whereas McLeod, I think you can help a little bit more when you need to. And so I like the idea of having Gordon do both, but keeping like outside as a larger part of his role moving forward is something I'd like to see. He played some outside cornerback as a rookie. It's something the Bears have been working with him throughout OTAs and training camp, so he can play multiple positions. I would like to see that. The last thing I'll throw in here is one that I'm not fully on board with, but I want to throw it out there as an idea. Like, the bye week would be the ideal time if you were gonna move Darnell Wright to left tackle. I would do it right now. Now, the caveat here is Darnell Wright's injured, and I'm not moving Darnell Wright to left tackle unless he's got the full 2 weeks of bye week to practice left tackle. But part of me feels like, well, if you want to get Trapillo involved anyway, you're making a left tackle change anyway, and I think long-term, Darnell Wright's going to be your starting left tackle next year. It just seems like the best. Like, if Trapillo's not going to be able to play left side, and you want to get your 5 best offensive linemen on the field next year, in theory, Darnell Wright will be your left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo will be your right tackle. That seems like it would make the most sense to get the guys out there in positions they can be successful. And if you're making tackle changes anyway, if Darnell Wright was healthy, I would strongly consider moving him to left tackle. Because he's not healthy, I'm not making the move instead. But if you're already shaking up the offensive line, it seems like, all right, just kind of bite the bullet there and then let Darnell Wright get all these games of experience at left tackle, knowing he might struggle a little bit more in the first couple. It might take him 4 or 5 games even to really kind of settle in at left tackle, but I'm willing to go through those growing pains now because it's not like it's going to be worse, than what your left tackle play has been. The problem is your right tackle play might get worse, and that's the kind of challenge. But again, you're also developing Trapillo over there, so you can live with some of the ups and downs there. In all likelihood, honestly, I'm not sure we're going to see the Bears make any of these changes. I mean, the things we just talked about, the running back, I don't think they're going to change. Left tackle, I don't think they're going to change this way. I don't think they're going to move Darnell Wright. Maybe I think Kyler Gordon's going to move around a little bit more, but him also coming off an injury, he's not going to be a full-time outside cornerback. I don't think we're going to see them play Hippolyte over Sewell. They like Sewell. And I don't think we're going to see Loveland eat up a ton of Komet's snaps right away. Over time, I think he will, but for now, I have my doubts that they're going to make big sweeping changes. But I am curious to see what they do change. And whatever they change, you can be sure we're going to break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, go check out any of our other great Locked On Podcast Network podcasts for your favorite team, including Locked On Cubs, playoff series, Brewers, Wisconsin, Illinois rivalry. It's a great time to go tune into Locked On Cubs or any of your other favorite baseball, basketball, hockey, college teams, you name it. We've got you covered here on Locked On Podcast Network. Just come on back to Locked On Bears tomorrow for another opportunity to bear down.